Welcome to the Persecution Report. I'm Greg Musselman. Coming up, a church building is destroyed by militant Muslims in Indonesia. Also, 6 Christians are killed in Egypt. And later, Evangelical Christians in the Mexican State of Chiapas are suffering some of the worst persecution in the Spanish world.
We believe the reason for this is the growth of the gospel, specifically in the indigenous areas.
That report and more are coming up on the Persecution Report. At least 100 people were reportedly killed and hundreds injured and homes and religious sites burned when mob violence erupted between Muslims and Christians in Jos, Nigeria. The violence was reportedly sparked by Muslim youths disrupting a worship service at the St. Michael's Catholic Church in the northern city of Nasaraguang in order to pursue a Christian woman. Muslims then continued attacks in the area, burning buildings of the Christ Apostolic Church, Assemblies of God Church, 3 branches of the Church of Christ in Nigeria, and 2 buildings of the Evangelical Church of West Africa. The Nigerian army was summoned to restore order in the area, but many believers remain fearful of further clashes. In November 2008, 6 pastors were murdered and at least 500 were killed in Jos. 40 church buildings were also destroyed. A mob of approximately 1,000 Muslims attacked a church building under construction in Bekasi Regency. That's near Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. At midnight, the Muslims arrived at the Church of St. Albert, some on bikes and some on foot, and stormed into the building, carrying banners and tanks of kerosene. One witness reported hearing them shout, "Destroy the church, destroy it, replace the church with a mosque." The Muslims damaged bricks, broke lights, and set the building on fire. No one was injured. Following the attack, a leader of the church's construction committee shared, "Even though our chapel was attacked, we were not afraid. We will continue the construction of this chapel until its completion." 2 Pakistani Christians, 21-year-old Imran Masih and 24-year-old Khushi Masih, were shot for refusing to convert to Islam while at a wedding in Punjab province. Now, shortly after the believers arrived at the wedding, a group of armed Muslim youths surrounded them and began shooting in the air, as is a customary show of celebration at a village wedding. However, one of the Muslims then threatened to shoot Imran and Khushi if they did not recite the Islamic profession of faith. The Christians refused, instead reciting Psalm 91. The infuriated Muslims then shot the believers in the chest and left them for dead. Both survived the shooting, and doctors are hopeful they will make a full recovery. Christians in Pakistan face severe opposition from Islamic militant groups, including imprisonment, torture, and even death. Further violence broke out in the southern Egyptian towns of Nag Hammadi and Pajora, only 2 days after 6 Christians, including a teenager and a Muslim security guard, were killed while exiting a church service. Muslim mobs reportedly shouting, "Allah is great and no God except Allah," used swords, gas cylinders, and Molotov cocktails to loot and torch homes, shops, and cars owned by Christians. Mary Bakhtar Kriolis, a Coptic Christian, died from fumes when her home was set ablaze. According to eyewitnesses, water and electricity was cut off. When officials finally arrived on the scene, they had empty water tanks. In the days following the church shooting, sectarian violence broke out between Christians and Muslims and with authorities. Evangelical Christians in the Mexican state of Chiapas suffer some of the worst persecution after Colombia in the Spanish-speaking world. And here's another example. Recently, 200 traditionalist Chamula Catholics, armed with clubs, hammers, and crowbars, destroyed 13 homes of evangelical Christians in the community of Las Llanos in the municipality of San Juan Chamula. Now, last September, the traditionalists gave the evangelicals an ultimatum to leave the community because of their professing another faith instead of the majority religion. Also, for refusing to pay contributions for traditionalist celebrations and not supporting the Zapatista movement, which is a rebel Marxist group. A team from the Voice of the Martyrs recently traveled to the southern Mexican state and met many followers of Christ who were suffering because of their desire to follow Jesus. Evangelical Christians are forced out of their homes and communities. Churches are destroyed. Christians are beaten. But why? Why is there such intense anger and hostility against these followers of Jesus in Chiapas?
We believe the reason for this is the growth of the gospel, specifically in the indigenous areas. In these cultural areas, the response is immediate to put a stop to the growth of the gospel.
One of the reasons for the hostility towards evangelicals is because many of them are opposed to contributing money to pay for traditionalist festivals, which blend ancient Mayan rituals with Catholicism. These festivals, which include traditionalist versions of major Christian feasts like Christmas and Easter, also often promote drunkenness throughout the villages. Traditionalists use pickaxes to demolish the Prince of Peace Pentecostal Church in San Juan Chamula. The destruction of this Pentecostal church in a nearby village was captured on video from a cell phone. Men armed with poles and sticks can be seen knocking down the tin roof. The attackers threatened to burn the Christians inside the church. Church pastor Rosa Hernandez, like many evangelical leaders in Chiapas, is in danger.
I'm threatened often. The men who did this told me they had bullets, and they will kill me with a bullet because I am a leader here.
Town leaders, known as a cacique, often take steps to keep evangelicals out of their towns and villages. Some Christians have been jailed and even killed in Chiapas. 20-year-old Lorenzo Lopez was tortured and murdered by a mob for his evangelical faith when he entered a traditionalist village to repay some of the money he borrowed for his wedding. Other evangelicals suffer a different kind of loss in Chiapas. Thousands have been expelled from their villages or had their possessions taken from them. Esdras Alonso, who pastors a church in San Cristobal, is also an attorney who works on behalf of persecuted Christians in Chiapas.
In a number of communities, local authorities want to take away land rights, ownership rights, the use of land. They accuse the brothers of not participating in fulfilling their obligations by not paying the fees they should pay for the different community activities.
Alonso adds that local authorities in these villages are misinterpreting of what the actual law states when it comes to the customs of indigenous people. Often local politicians, and in some cases with support of majority church leaders, legislate laws that are not in agreement with or even violate the Mexican Constitution that guarantees all its citizens freedom of religion.
They are trying to require evangelical believers to participate in a faith that is no longer theirs.
Antonio Perez assesses the damage of the Prince of Peace Pentecostal Church in Nichic, Sinacatan. Antonio, the caretaker of the church building and father of 11 children, was still recovering from a mob attack that nearly claimed his life the night the church was burned. Antonio and his young son, along with an evangelical Christian who works with him, Marino Perez, were returning home from San Cristobal. Joel Escobar, who is with an evangelistic organization that works with persecuted Christians, tells us what happened next.
The highway was blocked. There was a mob there, and they identified them as evangelicals. Someone shouted, "The evangelicals were coming back." So they hauled them out of the car and started to beat them.
After the brutal beating by the traditionalists, the Christians were taken to the police station for 5 hours and beaten again. Antonio nearly died from his injuries. Marino had his head shaved to humiliate him and was forced to sign a document that he would participate and contribute to the cost of religious festivals. During the attack, Antonio's 10-year-old son Eliseo was also injured.
I saw a lot of people and they were wearing masks, and they attacked the car. They got my father out of the car and they were throwing rocks, and one of the rocks hit me in the arm. I was afraid, and I just sat in the car until I had a chance to get out and run.
Eliseo was able to escape and says he's no longer afraid.
I'm a soldier for Christ, and I'm not afraid.
And the report you just watched will be featured in a new video from the Voice of the Martyrs Canada called Mexican Voices, Testimonies of the Persecuted, to be released in early April. And don't forget to pray for our brothers and sisters around the world who are suffering for the cause of Christ. Remember, when one part of the body suffers, we all suffer. Thanks for watching the Persecution Report. Goodbye, and God bless.
For more information on the ministry of the Voice of the Martyrs and ways in which you can help the persecuted church, please visit our website at persecution.net. That's persecution.net.